what are we doing? What are we looking at? What is happening in these readings? So we kind of have it broken down into 3 different sections. The first section is what?
The battle between good and evil.
That's the first section? Okay, fine. This is why I ask and give pause for people to answer, because I totally thought the end was the beginning. I know which one is in the middle and it should be the end, but anyway.
There was ones that I didn't know why I was reading them.
Most of them are referring to something that until you read the lecture, you don't know how it fits in the story.
Yeah, there were some of them that I just didn't get how they fit into what the theme was or how I was supposed to look at them. So.
What am I supposed to be getting out of this?
Yeah.
Okay, so some of them are all put together because it shapes the understanding of a topic. And unless you know the whole story and what it's actually talking about, you don't actually know what it is you're looking for. And that's part of the whole discernment piece, is people read the Bible over and over and over again and they don't know that these stories are connected. Or some of them actually aren't connected, but somehow in the prophecies they are related to each other. And so the reading lists are designed to give you a whole perspective on whatever the topic is. So looking at the topic of the battle between good and evil, I started out by trying to focus a couple readings on like light versus dark. That gets boring really fast. There are like hundreds of passages that literally just say light versus dark. And that's the whole story. And so I was like, okay, the reading list is long enough. Let's just pick 2. And so we just have 2 in there that are literally just saying like, there's light and then there's dark, and that's the contrast. Ta-da! And what you'll find when you read the Bible is in the prophecies, there is a lot of content that's all about like what's really going on beneath. But the problem with the prophecy is it's in a dream, usually, or in a vision. And so when we read the prophecies, we don't know if things are literal or not, or if they're metaphorical or not. And so it gets a bit complicated when you're trying to flesh out the story, because those are literally just stories that if you worked with dreams with me at all, then you know that the way I teach about dreams is that your subconscious wants to say something to you, but your conscious mind is denying or rejecting that information. That's why you don't get it when you're awake. And you have to go unconscious, or you have to be distracted for that information to pop in. One of the practices that we do, the moving meditation, that's one of the reasons for it. It's because when your body and everything is engaged and working on something, there's enough space between your mind and your body to allow things to drop in. That's why when you're doing the dishes, you get these like brilliant insights. Or like you're walking your dog and all of a sudden you have an entire sermon 2 seconds later and you're like, damn it, I can't write it down because my fingers are too cold to work my phone. We have those moments. And the reason is because we have got out of the conscious mind. We're basically entranced. And so whether the trance is dramatic or the trance is actually really subtle, that trance gives us access to the information that's in our subconscious, or the information that an outside source wants to get through to us that our conscious mind is rejecting or betraying. And so that's why we have the 6 different types of practices, and you're encouraged to make your way through those practices and continue to use them and find your relationship with them. Now, that being said, with the content of the Bible, we have all these moments in the stories where these prophets or people who are just receiving a message, they have these visions. Now, we always have to take a vision with a grain of salt, because it is technically like a dream, just your subconscious providing information in a way that you can't reject. Often, you remember your dream because it was so weird it freaked you out. And so you're like, what does that mean? Like, I'm disturbed, therefore I remember it, therefore I need to deal with this now. Because if it wasn't disturbing, it wouldn't catch your attention, you wouldn't remember the details. So that's why usually when you remember your dreams, it's like, that was super weird. And you get confused, but it's so coded that you can't figure out what it said. Now, the reason for that is because if your conscious mind is trying to reject information, then what's happening is As information is trying to come to you, it gets blocked. It's like there's a little warrior with a flaming sword who's making sure all this information isn't there to confuse you. But when that information is supposed to come to you from your subconscious or from an outside source, in order to get past that guard, it has to be coded. And each time it tries and gets rejected, it gets more coded, more coded, more coded, and therefore more convoluted, and more convoluted. As that's happening, things become really weird. And so we look at any visions that come through dreams in the Bible and you go, okay, is that so weird because they were resistant to it? Is it weird because it was in a dream? Or was what they were seeing actually that weird? And so when we look at the information in the Old Testament, there are basically, in my opinion, there are 4 testaments in the Bible, not 2. There's the Old Testament and the New Testament. That's kind of how it's usually broken down. The Old Testament is 2/3 of the book and the New Testament's 1/3. But the Old Testament is the history and the prophecies. So there's actually 2 sections in there. And then the New Testament is the Gospels, which are the story of Yeshua and his life and his ministry, and the epistles, which is the story of the life and ministry of the disciples and the apostles who followed after him that built the Christian church. And so we have the Christian church, which is the epistles, the Gospels, which is Yeshua's whole thing. We have the prophecies, which some have come to pass, some have not. Most of them we're not sure if they have or haven't, because we have no idea what they're talking about anyway. And then we have the Hebrew history. And so usually when I'm writing or talking, I will refer to the Hebrew Testament and the Christian Testament, referring to the Old and New Testament, because I don't think Old and New is very graceful. It gives the impression, and I talked about this before, about how for a lot of people, the Old Testament is outdated. That's why it's called old, and therefore we are no longer accountable to it, and there's nothing of value in it. So I avoid using the word old because it is kind of an excuse to dismiss the content in it. If you'll notice from the reading lists, I go pretty heavy on that old, outdated Testament for a reason, because that's where all the answers to the questions we have are. Especially when you're looking at mystic stuff and you're looking at the stuff that no one talks about in the Christian church. There's a few reasons that nobody talks about it. One reason, it's not popular enough to have a real audience for, or so they thought. And the other one is because it's so complicated, most of them don't understand what it's talking about in the first place, so they can't hold an intelligible conversation about it, much less teach others about it. And so they avoid the topic altogether. And they pretty much just don't talk about the prophets at all, even though the entire faith is based on the prophecies. And so this course is kind of the anomaly. It deals directly and almost exclusively with that content. And all of the other pieces from the other sections of the Bible are supporting the points that are made by the prophets. And part of that isn't to teach you how to read prophecies. That's not the point of this course. That would be lovely if people learned that, but you have to have a very specific skill to be able to decode that. If you can decode your own dreams with great skill, then you have a chance at being able to read the prophecies without getting confused. I wouldn't have a job if that were true, so here we go. So that's kind of where we land. For more on this topic and other content that's like it, subscribe, follow, and then head over to our homepage at strixrun.com or our content page to see other programs with content like this and also that's nothing like this. All right, follow us over and I'll see you there.